Hello Steelers, and welcome to this response video to Big Lee Miniature Adventures is IGOUGO dead video that he recently put up. I thought I'd do a response video because it's a lot easier than just writing out a massive wall of text on his videos, and also it gets everybody talking. If there's anybody else out there in YouTube land who makes YouTube videos, do a response video to this. Do one to Lee's as well. If you do though, do tag us both in it, and also go over and check out Lee's original video, and also check out his channel anyway. It's really good. He has some really good talking points. God knows how he keeps coming up with them, but he certainly does. He could also do with more subscribers, so check him out. I'll put a link to his video, well, I'll put a link to his channel down in the description below. I will put a link to the video as well where I can, so go and check that out. But basically his question to the community, as it were, is IGOUGO dead? And what he means by that is the Wargaming way of playing an IGOUGO game over. Has it finished? Now, being a cheeky lad, Lee didn't actually answer the question. He threw it out to the audience to answer. So I thought I'd answer it in the time-honoured fashion with a video of my own. And what he means by IGOUGO, or at least what I'm going to think is an IGOUGO in this video, and there are variations on this. It is basically where you're playing a game. You have your two sides lined up against each other. One person takes a turn, they move all their pieces, they fire all their pieces, they do all the other bits and pieces that they need to do in that turn, and then it turns over, the game turns over to their opponent, who then does exactly the same thing. Now, in most IGOUGO games, like for at least the old school IGOUGO games, invariably it means that every piece on the table gets to do something. They generally get to act, they get to move, they get to fire, or they get to melee, or they get to rally, or whatever it is they do. And that's the kind of IGOUGO, that's what I think of when I'm thinking of IGOUGO. Now personally, I far prefer alternative activations within Wargaming than that. Generally random activations, and I like this. This is stuff that is either driven by cards. So for example, in Sharp Practice, or through the Mud and the Blood, or through I Ain't Been Shot Mum, for example. I prefer those kind of things where you don't know what the next card is, or indeed What a Cowboy, which I've been playing recently. You don't know what the next card is going to be, and whether it's going to be your side or the opponent's side or something else. It could even just be a completely random effect or event as well that's been shuffled into that deck. I prefer things like a dice set of mechanics for activation, such as Chain of Command, where depending on how many sixes you roll in that phase, you may retain the phase, and then you may keep retaining the phase. Now I know a lot of people don't like that because they don't like it, feels as though they're getting curb stomped by the enemy. Personally, I like it. I think it's friction. I think it's something that you can't control. I know a lot of people, when they do play that, they reduce the number of command dice that you can roll each turn every time you get a second phase. Personally, I don't like that because I think that the chances of those phases coming up is so slim anyway that you know, eventually the game it smooths itself out anyway, given the amount of dice that you're rolling. But that's a discussion for another time. So that's the kind of thing that I really like. I mean, that said, I used to play a lot of IGOUGO games, and I've still got a couple in my collection that I play, such as Square Bashing. The main one that we used to play until relatively recently, the last 5, maybe 10 years, was Rapid Fire, a Second World War battalion level game. Now, that's a much higher level game than Chain of Command, of course, so you're supposed to be dealing with a lot more figures, but Rapid Fire always felt to us more like a company level game just because of the way it was laid out. But towards the end of us playing Rapid Fire, and again I'm talking like 5 or 6 years ago now, we started using random activations by basically assigning each unit to a number in a card deck, and then you draw the card and then that unit activates, and you do that until everything is activated in that turn. Basically, we were playing I Ain't Been Shot Mum, but without the T-break card in it. And then I actually bought a copy of I Ain't Been Shot Mum and realised what we'd been doing all along, and realised that I Ain't Been Shot Mum had been doing the same thing that we'd been doing, but a much better way of doing it. So basically that's kind of why it shifted over. And anybody who's watched this channel will know that I'm a big fan of the Two Fat Lordies stuff. And the reason I'm a big fan of their stuff is simply because of the amount of friction that they put into their games, and the fact that you do have these alternative activations that aren't IGOUGO, and you can't predict it. That's the thing with IGOUGO, at least in my opinion. And also, I'm going to caveat this, the rest of this video is this is all my opinion. This is not the law. If you like IGOUGO, then that is fine by you. If you don't like it, then that is also fine by you. Let me know in the comments either way. But my point is, with the alternative activation, is you don't know what's coming next, so you have to deal with the hand that you're dealt with. Basically, you're playing to try to get the best out of what you've got in your hand at that time, and I really like that. The reason I like that is because it basically forces you into making decisions at a pertinent time. Do you hold back? Do you wait until a better situation arises, or do you strike forward with whatever it is you're doing at the time? And that, for me, is really what the wargame is all about, and that, to me, is all about what command decisions are about. And I know we're not playing, actual simulations. We're pushing toy soldiers about on a table, but I want to feel as close as I can to what, potentially what a commander might think about, and how they are dealing with that. And this is one of the other things that I like very much in the Two Fat Lordy stuff, is that end of a turn chit or card that sometimes comes up as well. So like in Iron Beat Shotgun, you've got tea breaking. Through the Mud and Blood, you've got the Snifter card. In I can't remember what's the other one. Sharp Practice, you've got the Tiffin card, for example. And I like that, again, that at some point in that deck there is going to be an end of the turn. And do you get to do all the things that you want to do in that phase before that turn comes? Do you wait until the next turn comes up? It's really very much a push your luck kind of mechanic, which you find in a lot of board games, which I really like. The fact that, it's like, do you hold out, or do you keep going, just waiting for that extra little bit? So for example, in Sharp Practice, you get the command cards. When you've got 4, you can do loads of stuff with it. When you've got 1, you can't do a great deal with it. So when you get to 2 or 3 in your hand, do you wait just to get that 4th one, or will the Tiffin card come in and completely kibosh in? I really, really like that mechanic, and I think it's such a good way of doing the stuff. And a lot of people say that the dice mechanic that's in Chain of Command is too random. Well, it is and it isn't, because you can actually fix those dice to suit your situation. Or, because we're wargamers, one of the things that we always want to do is we want to do everything all the time. So you just have to really rethink it and think about the game differently, and think, right, what can I do right now? What can I do in the future? Do I get into a better position now to make it even easier to do what I want to do in the future? And that, again, it goes back to those command decisions. It goes back to the idea that you're thinking about the game, and you're not just literally pushing toy soldiers towards each other and then rolling a load of dice when it comes to your turn to fire. And that, I think, really is why I've drifted further and further and further away from IGOUGO. Because I just personally, once again, this is me, I don't find it stimulating. I don't find it interesting. It's just something that you just go through the motions. And I find this a little bit with things like Blucher, for example. I really like Blucher. There's some really, really good mechanics in Blucher. I think it's a terrific game. There's some fantastic stuff going on in there. However, it is an IGOUGO, and I've thought often about just having an initiative phase where you just both basically roll together to see who goes first in that turn, so it can flip over, and even that is enough just in friction. But in Blucher, you also get the momentum dice, so you only have a certain number of activations in that turn before when you don't even know if your turn is going to end or not, because your opponent is in control of those dice, and then they tell you. And that, again, is another really good thing. It's like another card game that is almost IGOUGO is O Group, but that has an alternative initiative where you both roll for initiative at the start of the turn. One of you may win it, so you may get 2 turns in a row as the attacker, or you may get 2 turn and then a turn as a defender. But then you also have, on top of that, the friction of having a certain amount of command chits, and you have more units generally on the table than you have command chits. So you've got to make your decisions there, and this is where the decision point thing comes in, where you really have to think about what it is, where you want to emphasise your attacks, where you want to put your the real the spear point of the attack. Where are you going to spend your orders? Also, in O group, you have to hold, well, you should hold some orders back to react as well. So you've also got agency within the opponent's turn. You're not just waiting for the opponent to finish their turn. You are actually reacting to what they're doing as well. And that again is a really nice way of just breaking up that I go you go old school way of playing these big kind of games, really. And as you know, that's probably really kind of comes back to my lack of interest in them, and also just the lack of interest in generally in a lot of IGOUGO games. They have phases within a turn, so you would have a move phase, you have a morale phase, you have an attack phase, you have a shoot phase, and those I really don't like them. I prefer to have units have a bit more freer action, because that feels a bit more, in inverted commas, realistic as pushing toy soldiers around on the table does. But you know, in a battle, they don't just walk forward 50 paces, then fire, then walk forward another 50 paces, then fire again. You know, they might fire and then walk, or they might fire and not do anything, or they might just walk. You know, it just seems almost weird to me that those kind of things happen, and people still write rules around those. I was just looking at some forthcoming fantasy rules that do almost exactly that, and I was just thinking, I was kind of scratching my head in disbelief. I mean, maybe they're going for the old school vibe. That's probably what they're doing. But to me, I just think, wow, that is the last thing I want to be doing, really. And again, to caveat this, I've spoken to Ken, the Yorkshire gamer, about this, and he plays a lot of games with a lot of people involved in them, and he plays big games with lots of units and with lots of people on long tables. Now, I think those kind of games work perfectly well there, because everybody knows where everyone is, because then you can say, right, we've all moved, right, we've all fired, so you can go through the game like that. However, you know, to me, that works. It works in those theatres, it works in those areas, I think, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. As Sean of God's Own Scale always says, it is a broad church, this hobby, and if that's how you want to play games, then that's how that's how you enjoy them. Then please, you know, crack on. Don't let me be the arbiter of IGOUGO. But to me, to answer Lee's question, it is really simply down to that fact that I just want that player agency to be able to do lots of different things, and to be able to react to the enemy and make those decisions. You know, when the end of a game, I want to have felt as though my actions and my decision making were part of the game. It wasn't just a case of everything moves forward, everything fires, and that kind of thing. And this comes, I think, a lot from me playing a lot of board games. And when I say board games, I don't mean chit and counter games, hex and counter games, sorry. So stuff like the traditional, you know, Avalon Hill kind of war games. I'm talking about modern war games. So first one that springs to mind would be something like Pandemic, for example, or even Orleans, or any number of the what they call Euro games, just where they explore new mechanics. And the thing is with board gamers is they are always crying out for new mechanics in games. So if a game, you know, new games basically will not copy, or generally they will explore mechanics that have already gone before, rather than just doing an exact copy of something that's gone before with a different theme. I do find a little bit that some wargame rules just kind of follow the same thing that's gone before, and just don't really explore any new ways of doing stuff. Again, you know, to fall back here, really, the stuff I like very much about Two Fat Lardies is that they don't do that, and they do explore different ways of doing things within the war game, within the limits of wargaming, really. And I like it. I like the chaos, you know, the chaos of battle, the friction of battle, that kind of thing. I really like it, and I think their games and their systems really bring that forward, which As you know, if you watch this channel several times, you will know that I'm a big fan of their stuff anyway. So really, I mean, that kind of wraps up what my answer is in a bit of a rambly kind of way. What do you think about IGOUGO? What is your preferred style of play? Do you like random activations? Do you like an activation, say like in bolt action, where you know you're going to activate, you just don't know when it's going to happen? I mean, that's one of the other things about having a turn end, putting a turn end into a game really stops that kind of thing. Whereas, you know, in a game like bolt action, you're always going to activate all of your units and let it be destroyed by the time they come round. But is that a preferred thing for you, or do you prefer the way where you don't? You might get a tiffin card, 2 cards into that turn. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think of IGOUGO. Let me know what you think of the other things I've talked about. You know, my preferred way. As I say, this is all an opinion. This is my opinion. You know, yours will probably differ. I'm sure people are probably gnashing their teeth at the things I've said in this. But, you know, that's what is great about this hobby, is the fact that we can all be different and we can all really just enjoy the games that we want to enjoy in any way we like. And there's nobody to tell you that you're doing it wrong. Unless, of course, the rules writer is sitting over your shoulder and watching you. In most cases, that's never going to happen though anyway. So look, just let me know. And thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, do hit that subscribe button. And as I say, go and check out Miniature Adventures, Lee over at Miniature Adventures, and leave a comment on his video as well. And if you are a YouTuber and you've got something to say about this, say it. Just tag myself and Lee in them so we can see them, and then we can keep this interesting conversation going in video form as well.